2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but today we are traveling through the bowling world as we celebrate our good friend Jake's birthday with a pick of his. Why don't
Yes.
All right. Sorry, Dave, you're breaking up bad on my end, so I hope I'm not jumping in too soon. But so this week we'll be discussing a film by the brothers Coen, Joel and Ethan, from 1998. A little movie a few people may have heard of called The Big Lebowski. Co-written by Joel and Ethan Coen. This was back in the phase where officially Joel directed and
Oh, now Jacob's disappeared.
Christ's sake.
Everybody's voice is cutting off this time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
yeah,
can hear.
yep,
All
Can you hear
go back
me?
to it. Yep.
yep. Everyone's coming in good mostly.
All right, back to it, Jacob. Joel and Ethan Coen.
Indeed. And in this particular film, Jeff the Dude Lebowski, mistaken for a millionaire of the same name, seeks restitution for his ruined rug and enlists his bowling buddies to help get it. So there you have it, the plot in a nutshell. Of course, this is a rather nutty plot, and it is a movie that almost at first, when you first watch it, you might wonder how much of a plot there is, like a lot of their films that rewards repeat viewing. But at any rate, I will go ahead and start around the room here. I guess I will start to my right and work that way. Dustin, is this your first time seeing The Big Lebowski, and what is your impression of it?
Well, I have technically seen this movie before. In undergrad, I think it was maybe sophomore or junior year. This movie was on in the background while I had company over, but we weren't paying attention to the movie. So I have technically seen it before, but remembered nothing about it beyond like the trampoline scene on the beach. So today we revisited it, and it was indeed pretty great. I understand why it's so popular now. Like it's just a string of this guy having the most miserable luck you could imagine, and for a while I was like, wow, it's my 2023. This is just like been a cascade of stupid things happening to me, and I kind of related quite a lot. So. But I mean, it wasn't like a hilarious like funny movie, but it was a man, now what kind of movie, like a kind of a dry humor, I guess. And I was pretty happy you guys got me to revisit this. So I thought it was great. Yeah, that's all I really got to say for now.
Good times. And as those who have joined us for previous discussions on Fargo and Barton Fink, the Coens do like their dark humor. Both of those are technically comedies. I would think this one's usually thought of more as a comedy than either of those, but and also shoot, I had another thought and I've lost it. Sorry. So, but Dustin, that was it for you for your initial, or?
I did say that, yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to swoop around to the end there. And Brandon, how about is this? I don't. I don't believe this was your first take on it, but what's your impressions on it?
No, this is not my first time watching this particular film. I admit I've watched it a couple of times in the past, but before I forget, I do have something to say to Jacob.
I just called because I have to say happy birthday on your birthday day. Happy birthday on your birthday day. And there's a special delivery coming right your way. Your favorite.
And you won't have to see that again until June. All right. But yes, I've seen it at least twice. And the 2 times I've seen it, or 3 times, or however many times, I'm sure I've seen it a decent number. I didn't care for it. I admit, I didn't understand why people liked it so much. I thought it was overrated, a bit boring, and I hated the dude. So it annoyed me that so many people loved the dude so much. This time, it's been probably a good 15, 20 years since I've seen it last. And I liked it much better this time around. This was a... let's see here. This was a much better take for it for me. I enjoyed it more. Kim saw it for the first time with me, and she liked it a lot. I listened to the plot more. For some reason, it kind of reminded me a lot of Hudson Hawk, and I don't know. I would say I don't know why, but that's not true. I do know why. It's because it still has that kind of semi-ordinary person going on this and meeting these extremely eccentric characters along the way. Yeah, I would say that I like this much more this time around than I have previously.
One could argue that that's a hallmark of many of the Coen films, although generally speaking, even the central characters are quite eccentric. But I agree, the dude is probably one of the more grounded central characters they have.
He's very grounded compared to everybody else.
Yeah. And it's probably partly because he's actually based a bit of trivia I'll throw out there. The dude is inspired by a real person that the Coens actually knew in Los Angeles. I'm not sure it's closely based on him, but inspired by at the very least. And I remember the other thing I was going to say when Dustin, the way you described it was a perfect tee up, and I dropped the ball. But the Coens did make a movie, Brandon's favorite, A Serious Man, that is a literal adaptation of the Book of Job. And the Book of Job is often a theme in their movies. And I could see how that might have been on their minds with this one. But, anywho, Dave, is this your first time watching The Big Lebowski, and what's your initial impression?
It is, although I have had many artsy friends of mine look up to this film and put it on a pedestal and think it's like the greatest thing known to mankind. I do think that there are parts of this that are very trippy, as if like every time the dude got knocked out, he went on an acid trip. So I did enjoy the imagery, like whenever that happened. I do enjoy the dude as a character. The character itself just went through so much throughout the film. So I do like the actors that are playing in here. I mean, the transition between Santa Claus and the Big Lebowski is definitely a mind fuck. That's for darn sure.
Because we did recently cover a nice, wholesome Christmas movie where the guy that played Santa is now not Santa.
Correct. In fact, I wonder if they were going. Who was that? Winston Churchill a little bit with his character. Like, although I would say it's a combination between FDR and Winston Churchill, because FDR had a wheelchair.
Not to mention Potter from It's a Wonderful Life.
That too, I can see that.
And there's also one very specific touchstone that I'm going to get to in a minute.
But at the end of the day, I'm neutral. I'm not sure whether I liked it or disliked it. I guess I'll have to wait for a second viewing of it just to. And I know I have a copy of it. I just, because of knowing what I did about it beforehand, it didn't appetize me to watch it, at any given point in time. And yet, at the back of my mind, it was like, okay, I know all these critics love it. Why don't I just sit down and watch it? And it was different. So I watched it. I liked little bits and pieces. Let's just put it that way. So. That is where I stand.
All righty. All right. How about you, Tammy? Is this your first time seeing this? And what were your thoughts?
It was my first time seeing it. Well, I know at the beginning of it, I was like telling David, I don't get it. Because it just, everything was changing and everything. And then, okay, now I get it. Okay. I thought it was weird. Like David said, it seemed like everything that could happen to dude happened to dude. It was just like, and his poor car. I mean, that poor car went through so much. I felt sorry for the car.
It was already a piece of crap to begin with.
I guess, yeah. Given that car really did go through a lot.
It was a piece of crap to begin with, but it just got even worse. I was like, what else can you do to this thing? Which, in the end, we know what else they could do to it, but I don't know if I liked it or disliked it. I found it kind of strange. That's all. That's just Goodman's character. I can't go out because of this. I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of that. He always had some thing. This day is this. This day. There was always something going on every day why he couldn't do this or he couldn't do that or he could only do this or, it's like, what do you do is study like all the different things on every single day for every religion and everything. So, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. Like I said, I'm not sure. I mean, would I watch it again? Yeah, I'd probably watch it again, but it wouldn't be on the top of my list. So.
Alrighty. Alright, so that's your take then. Let's see here. I'm just looking something real quick that I meant to look up first. So basically, Okay, I don't think they have one for Walter. I feel sad about that. Ah, oh well. So this is a movie that I have a pretty long history with, and pretty storied history with. I actually came prepared. I don't know how many of you will see the visuals, but I came prepared with a White Russian tonight. As I had a couple as I watched the film. I had never heard of the beverage prior to seeing this film, and it became a favorite of mine in college. So let's just say I've said a little bit before about my early history with Coen Brothers films. I had a very dear friend in college who introduced me to Raising Arizona, saying it was the greatest film ever. And I was very intrigued, and I checked out Fargo shortly thereafter. I cannot swear where The Big Lebowski came on the list. I would say it was probably about the fifth or sixth movie of theirs I saw, maybe the fourth. I feel very confident that Blood Simple came first. And I feel like maybe Miller's Cross. I really can't remember. When this one came out, it was one of their when I was introduced to them, this was one of their higher profile films, in part because it was also the last one released. But also, this was a movie that basically bombed on release and then grew into. This is one of the truest examples of a cult hit. There is even a religion called Dudism. This is literally a cult film. So you will very rarely find a better example of that. But it was kind of a bomb when it came out. I think a lot of people didn't know what to make of it. And to be honest, I didn't originally know. I appreciated its weirdness. I thought parts of it were freaking hilarious. I took to the dude right away. I mean, he is a bit of an asshole, but he's so chill about it. And of course, you put him next to Walter, and he looks like the voice of reason. And I think for the rest of his life, people are going to look at Jeff Bridges as the dude first and foremost. And I don't think he minds. From what I understand, he seems to be cool with that. And certainly John Goodman has gone on record that this is his favorite role he's ever played. And there, you got a really solid cast in this film. It's got a absolutely banging soundtrack. It is the first time I think that the Coens worked with T-Bone Burnett. And of course, their next collaboration together was Oh Brother Wart Thou, and they've done several since then. But the Coens and T-Bone Burnett together, they know how to put music to a movie, basically. It's got so much going for it. But yeah, the first time I heard it, the first time I watched it, I was taken aback by all the foul language. It does get a little dirty in parts. The character of Jesus Quintana is not only a little bit icky in terms of being a stereotype, but he's also just kind of an icky character. And I remember once watching this movie on TBS Superstation, and not only did they edit the shit out of this movie, they cut Quintana out completely. He wasn't even in the movie because they didn't know what to do with him. So I couldn't even guess how often I've seen the film. I still have yet to see it in theaters, and our local theater, our local historic theater, does a bird fest. They do what do they call it? They call it the Big Lebowski. because it's the Bird Theater. They call it the Big Lebowski. They do a festival, I think a yearly festival, and I keep meaning to go and just never get around to it. We have a local brewing company, Center of the Universe, that has a food-centric beer called the El Duderino and a Donnie-centered one just called Donnie. And both of them are great. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like they have a Walter beer. I'm not sure. That's disappointing. But I don't know. It's just such a far-reaching film for me. And I'm just just a big fan of the Coens generally, and kind of hoping they get back to doing more together. Brandon and I went to see Ethan Coen's first narrative effort over the weekend, Driveway Dolls. And of course, Joel's solo one was The Tragedy of Macbeth, and you couldn't find much more different films than those two. But they're good, but I think the two of them work better as a team. Yeah, this is but one thing that was different about this go around is the Coens are well, I won't say notorious. They are well known to be big fans of film noir. And The Man Who Wasn't There was straight up a riff on Dashiell Hammett, the author of The Maltese Falcon. This one supposedly was a straight up riff on Raymond Chandler, the author of The Big Sleep. And the title is a play on The Big Sleep. And I've never actually seen The Big Sleep, so I watched it last week. And the films are very different. I'm not even going to try to pretend this is a version of The Big Sleep, but there are a lot of touchstones. And one of them is that the dude, much like oh man, I should be able to remember Bogart's name. I'm drawing a Bogart's second most famous role, arguably, and I'm drawing a blank on it. But anyway, that character, the both of them are put on the trail by an elderly gentleman in a wheelchair. And in The Big Sleep, he has two daughters, one of whom, Bunny, is pretty much a stand-in for his younger daughter. That no two ways about it. And Maud, his actual daughter in this film, is kind of a stand-in for the Colonel's other daughter in The Big Sleep. So that was kind of cool to see that and go, wow, I would never have made that connection in a million years, I think. And the film does have noir elements, even though it's technically a stoner comedy. And that might be one of the reasons people don't know what to make of it when they first see it. It's like a stoner comedy, film noir about bowling. It's weird, which is great. But anyway, I guess that probably about does it for the startup. I'll go ahead and the movie starts, and this was also a nod to film noir and Raymond Chandler. The film has a narrator. Of course, in this version, the narrator is an old cowpoke who is credited in the cast as the Stranger, and who is played by a heavily mustachioed Sam Elliott. Basically playing Sam Elliott. He has so many cowboy roles.
So one thing I noticed, kind of jarring, this dude looked a lot like my dad did at different points.
Which one?
Towards the end of his life. Sam Elliott, like in the hat. Like my dad liked to wear a big cowboy hat like that in the last few years of his life. And he had a big mustache and like the brushy eyebrows. So my dad looked somewhere between Tom Atkins and Sam Elliott in this movie. So it was just kind of like, hey, like a familiar kind of feeling.
I got to admit, the dude reminds me a little bit of my old man.
I've always told my best friend of 30 years that he reminds me of Sam Elliott, especially when he plays in Roadhouse.
Yeah.
And my friend Scott said that he told me that I am not the only one who says that he reminds him of people of Sam Elliott. It's like, for me, it's because Scott's not like a really big guy, but you know what? If you get on his bad side, you will know it, and you will not want to be there. he's
Right.
just got he's just got that way about him that it's kind of like, uh-oh, what did I do? I'm getting away from this guy.
Right. So, so basically, Sam Elliott, the stranger, sets the scene at the start of the film as we listen to the old tune, "The Tumbling Tumbleweeds," and we're watching a tumbleweed tumble all through Los Angeles, which is just this weird, crazy opening that, to bring in Western vibes too, which is another thing. This film is part Western as well. Like far Western, but in fact, one of my favorite lines in the movie, I think, is when the stranger and the dude are talking for the first time face to face. They're at the bar, and the stranger's like, "Well, they say sometimes you eat the bar, and sometimes the bar, well, he eats you." And of course, he's not meaning bar like BAR. He's talking like a bear, but. Dude's like, is that some kind of Eastern thing? And I'm like, yeah, that's how they say bear in the East. Yeah. But I don't know. I just found that fun. But actually, the stranger is one of the few. The Coens are kind of famous for weird accents in their films. I think the stranger is one of the few that really has an accent here. Him and Quintana really are the main ones. Most of them just do their usual California thing. But anyway, the narrator sets us up. He introduces us to the dude in a supermarket where we see him taste testing the milk in the aisles, and then or half and half or whatever it is he's getting for his White Russians, no doubt. And the narrator uses this opportunity. The Big Lebowski is weird because it's a period piece set 5 years in the past. Like, this film came out in 98. I think it was probably filmed in 97. And it basically is set during the first Gulf War. So what, like 91, I guess? And while we're in the grocery store, we see a video clip of George Bush the Elder talking about this aggression will not stand, which is a line that comes back as the film goes on. But I just find that really interesting. It's not like a huge thing that the movie had to be set at that time, but the Coens make that weird choice. Like, how often do you see a film that's a period piece set less than a decade earlier? And I think they did a good job of capturing the early 90s, But so after the narration, the dude gets home, he opens the door, and is bodily drugged through his dinky ass apartment by a guy who throws him headfirst into the toilet and starts giving him, swirly after swirly, going, "Where's the money, Lebowski? We need the money, Lebowski," And it got another great line where after 3 or 4 tries, dude's like, "I don't know, I need to look again."
Later, that same dude ended up playing the devil or someone close to the devil. I think it was the devil on Supernatural.
The guy that was giving him the swirly?
Yeah.
Huh, okay. Good. It seems appropriate somehow.
He never seems to have the very good luck, the dude.
No, he doesn't. But it's like, but it turns out, okay, and he also opens the dude's bowling bag, and he takes out the ball. He's like, "The fuck is this?" And dude's like, "Obviously, you're not a golfer." But you know, these two dudes, there's this guy and there's the other guy who decides to piss on the dude's rug. And the dude's like, not on the rug, man, you know. But they're looking for Jeffrey Lebowski, and this is Jeffrey Lebowski. But Jeffrey Lebowski, the millionaire whose wife owes money to a certain Jackie Treehorn, we come to find out later. I don't think we find out right here exactly, but she owes money, and these guys have come to collect. And the dude's like, my wife? Do you see a ring? Does this place look like I'm fucking married? You know, I usually keep a pretty clean mouth on this thing, but it's hard to quote this movie.
No, I mean, later in the movie, Sam Elliott basically tells him, like, you shouldn't curse so much.
What are you talking about? Yeah. It's like, yeah, dude, do you need to use so many cuss words?
But in all fairness, the rug did tie the room together.
It did. And actually, there's a really great book. It's a really cool book called This Book Ties the Films Together. It's a riff off of that. But it's all about all the Coen brothers films. But yeah, that line became kind of there's a few things in this movie that have become a part of pop culture, or they have become memes, and the rug tied the room together, I think, is a big one of those, actually. But you know, these guys, they finally are like, oh, he's not the guy. This guy's a fucking, yeah, he's a deadbeat. And then the dude's like, well, at least I'm housebroken. Yeah. And so they leave, and then we get an extended bowling intro to the strains of what I think is one of Bob Dylan's best songs. The Man and Me is just a great song, and it's a great intro to this. But you get this really in-depth bowling scene that actually kind of put me of mind of Kingpin, kind of reminded me of that one a little. With some of the that one scene, that one line that I think we mentioned in our discussion where they talk about all the great athletes. You know,
I just wanted to say something about that intro. Because at first I was like, what is happening? And then it just gets so silly, like so quickly. It's like, I thought you said this guy was a millionaire. So where's your wife? And what wife? I'm not married. The seat is up, man. And that makes the guy kind of pause, and it's like, wait a minute, are we at the right place?
Wait, this guy's supposed to be rich, isn't he? Oh man, we got the wrong person.
Where's the time? And they just leave. It's like,
right.
You wasted your time? What about me?
Yeah, they complain about him wasting their time, and it's like it's not like he invited them over or anything, you know. But it like really does
job application in the last year and a half.
What happened?
It's like applying for jobs in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, how dare you have a typo on your resume? What?
Yeah, trying to apply for housing. Oh my god. Shit. But yeah, you know, in a sense, this scene literally pulls the dude headlong into a noir storyline that he had not had any intention of wandering into on his own. But so then we get that, like, that intro kind of ends with Donnie hitting a strike, and Donnie, of course, is played by Steve Buscemi. And this was the 5th Coen Brothers movie in a row with Steve Buscemi. In Miller's Crossing, he is assassinated off screen, and we later learn that his body is at Miller's Crossing. In the Hudsucker, or in Barton Fink, he is the bellhop in a hotel that burns down, and we don't know his fate. The Hudsucker Proxy, he gets off light. He just has a small role, and that's it. Fargo, he gets put in a wood chipper. Here he plays Donnie, and we'll tell you before we're done what happens to Donnie. But for most of the film, every time he opens his mouth, Walter is on him with, "Shut the fuck up, Donnie," or "You're out of your element, Donnie," or something like that. But basically, Donnie rolls a strike, and it comes back to the dude and Walter having a conversation about what happened at the apartment. And that's where the Walter gives this line that I've used a few times. I love this line. He's like, Donnie's trying to find out what's going on. And Walter's like, "Were you listening to Dude's story, Donnie? Were you listening to Dude's story? You're like a child that wanders into a movie and wants to know what's going on." Yeah, he's not very nice to Donnie. It's you feel for the guy. And the next Coen Brothers project that Steve Buscemi showed up in, Brandon knows what I'm going for here. He basically, his whole role in Paris Jetem was to get the crap beat out of him.
Good God,
that's
my least,
but he loves working with
Coen project next to a serious man.
I don't know why, but I love that segment of Paris Jetem. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I need to see it again. But anyway, so they're having this conversation, and this is where we really get introduced to Walter and Donnie. Of course, Walter is John Goodman's character, and he is a Vietnam vet who has serious anger management issues. He's pretty good at catching himself before he fully flies off the handle, but he partly flies off the handle many times in the film, and a couple times he does full on do it. And I do believe it was the next scene where he did. But in this one, it's he is an amusing and also kind of horrifying character in equal measures. And I think I could see why John Goodman had fun with the character. And he really does go all in. He's another one that has a long history with the Coens. He's been in 5 of their films, and I have said before, and I'll say again, I think this and Barton Fink may be the 2 best roles he's ever had. They're certainly 2 of the better ones, and but they're having this, this long conversation where you learn that, he has his thoughts about what might be going on. I think he kind of gooses the dude into the idea of getting retribution. Not retribution, repatriation, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for? Recompense. Recompense. The dude wants his rug replaced, and that's all he wants when he calls the real Jeffrey Lebowski. He just wants a new rug, and he figures, well, they pissed on my rug thinking it was your rug, so you owe me a rug. So we cut to a scene of the dude visiting Jeffrey Lebowski, the aforementioned elderly gentleman in a wheelchair, who I think, Dave, your comparison to Winston Churchill is not bad. It kind of is like Potter and Churchill rolled into one personality-wise.
Well, and because he's in a wheelchair, FDR, so it's like take your political figures and combine them into one. But you're saying Potters, so
yeah. But first we meet Brandt, the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, who plays Lebowski's, I guess, adjutant, like his right hand, his manservant, whatever word you want to use. And there is a butler in The Big Sleep who fills almost the same role. So Brandt is also a nod to that particular film. And he, Hoffman doesn't have a huge amount to do in the role, but he definitely plays it to the hilt. He plays him as the fiercely loyal and quite competent manservant. But we have this part where the dude's looking at the wall and he's looking at all these civic achievements and whatever, and just kind of steamrolling right over any tour guidance that Brandt is trying to do. And then the big Lebowski comes rolling in, and he's like, all right, I'm a Lebowski, you're a Lebowski. What do you want? And he is very full of himself, to put it kindly. He is a big, important man who does big, important things and has no time for ne'er-do-wells and slackers like the dude. And the dude doesn't make it easier on himself. It's like he addresses him as Mr. Lebowski. He's like, no, let me get something straight. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude. So that's what you call me. That or his dudeness or duder or El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing, Are you employed, sir? Employed? I always loved his reaction there. Employed? And you don't go out dressed like this on a weekday. Is this what day is today? I kind of wish I had the freedom to not know if it's a weekday or not. But on the other hand, a little bit of structure actually can be a good thing. So, but yeah, we have this contest of the wills between the ultimate slacker and this guy who pretends to be a pillar of the community, and to all intents and purposes, he kind of is. And basically, the dude finally is just like, screw it, and he leaves. And on the way out, he's like, yeah, that's your answer to everything. The bum's lost. Condolences. The bum's lost. And so Brandt comes, strolling up to him. How did your meeting go, Mr. Lebowski? Oh, it was great. The old man said I could take any rug in the building.
I like that particular one because he came off as a total dick. And then when you find out what's really up at the end of the movie, mm-hmm. he's an even bigger dick for that.
Oh yeah. So, because one of the pictures we looked at, it was a kind of a funny little moment, but it is important to the plot. One of the pictures is a picture of Jeffrey Lebowski with a whole bunch of inner city children, and they're called the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers, I believe it was. And Brandt's like, and these are Mr. Lebowski's children, and dude's like, oh wow, it's like different mothers. He's kind of racially cool. He's like, no. Mr. Lebowski is giving these children a chance for a higher education. It's like, what do they call it? I don't know. But anyway, the idea is he has this foundation to help inner city children. And later we find out that foundation is involved in the overall plot. And I don't think we said, but y'all know by now, whoever's watching's probably seen this show. Spoiler alert. But so anyway, I believe we go from there to back to the bowling alley. I've seen this enough, I should memorize it, but my memory also is, so y'all can feel free to chip in and correct me at any point. And of course, does anyone have anything further they want to talk about the scenes so far?
Not that I know of, but I believe that's Philip Hoffman that plays that
right
assistant. He plays it off so greatly. I mean,
yeah,
he's that smug son of a, he's playing it off like he's a car salesman almost.
Yeah, I could see that.
Slick, but always positive.
Right. Well, like I said, I see him as like he's almost like the ultimate manservant. Like he is completely obsequious to the Big Lebowski, but he does have that little sense of smug superiority towards most everyone else. It's kind of like what is it? Like the greatness is rubbed off on him, I guess you could say. But a car salesman, I could see that. A spin doctor might be another way to say that. He's a good spin doctor. But so yeah, so we go back to I believe back to the bowling alley at this point, where the dude and Donnie are hanging out. I believe Donnie, gets another strike. And this was something that I don't think I'd ever really paid attention to before. And I don't know if did any of you notice between the three, Dude, Walter, and Donnie, did any of you notice how they bowled in the movie?
They weren't that great at it seemed. Like, I did notice that Donnie almost got a strike at one point. But he missed the last pin. And it's not like a hard... He missed a not hard to miss pin.
Right.
It was kind of like, really?
Nowhere near as good as Jesus over there.
Right.
That guy was weird.
You said it, man. Nobody found something, Jesus. But no, the reason I ask is I never really paid attention before. But ostensibly, our two main leads and one of our, a couple of the main co-leads are bowlers. A good chunk of the film takes place in a bowling alley.
Well, and John Goodman did play a bowler in another movie called The Flintstones.
Yes. And he's probably bowled in other movies too. I feel like he has. But if you think about it, in this movie, Walter never bowls once. And the dude, there is a dream sequence where he assists Maud with a bowling of sorts. That's the only time the dude kind of bowls in the whole movie. Donnie, I think we see 3 or 4 times. And he hits a strike every single time except the one right before he dies. And like Dustin said, he missed an easy pin on that bowl. So it was foreshadowing for his soon to be missing out on a lot more. I never really thought about that before, but then I was like, that's kind of fun. I never thought about that. But anyway, so yeah, here we see Donnie do it again, and they're actually doing a league match against this dude named Smokey and some of his friends. And Walter comes in carrying a dog. He says, I don't know, I think it's a Pomeranian, but I could be wrong. I think that was a terrier. Am I?
Yeah, that was more of a terrier than a Pomeranian. Kim pointed that out. I was like, that's not a Pomeranian.
And he claims it's a show dog with papers, but it's like, okay, well, did you read the papers? Did you? But apparently it's his ex-wife. His ex-wife with her current boyfriend / whatever are in Hawaii, and they've left the dog with Walter. And Walter has this weird thing where he's hung up in the past, not just Vietnam, but he's hung up on his ex-wife. There's a running dialogue throughout the film of his Judaism, even though he was born Polish Catholic, and he converted for her, and well, now they're no longer together. The dude takes him to task on that later on. But yeah, he brings the dog to the bowling alley. Dude's like, you brought the dog bowling? Bring him bowling. I didn't get its shoes. I'm not buying it a drink. But he recovers from his Walterness enough to notice that Smokey has apparently put a toe over the line, and he goes ballistic. And this is the part where the one time he really does fly off the handle and doesn't, and it ends up having some level of consequences for their team, because he freaking whips out a gun and puts it in Smokey's face. It's like, mark it 0. And it ultimately, but this is another famous line from the movie. You're entering a world of pain. A world of pain. And he doesn't back down, and it looks like he is ready to pop Smokey until Smokey marks a 0. He's like, all right, dude. Yeah, okay. It's freaking 0. Are you happy? And then Walter just, uncocks the gun, sits down. It's a league game, Smokey. Just shuts it off like that. And it's like, what are y'all's thoughts on that scene?
What about you, Tammy? What did you think about that scene? Okay.
I think we lost Tammy.
No.
All right. Brandon, were you about to throw something out?
Not for that scene.
Okay.
I don't think I have anything.
Right. It's pretty self-explanatory, but like I said, I don't know what it is. Like, and if it's done poorly, it annoys the crap out of me. But if it's done well, people who can change personality on a dime, I don't necessarily like hanging out with them in real life. That can be confusing and worrisome. But in movies, it can be kind of hilarious. And again, I credit where it's due. John Goodman plays what could have been an annoyingly... He could have looked like a very poorly written character. But I really think that the way that Goodman played him and the way that Coen's directed him, it all hung together to where there was an internal logic. And I just love the way that Walter turns on a dime. He is wildly unpredictable and dangerous. And it's, again, I wouldn't want to know him in real life, but it's kind of hilarious to watch it, especially because the dude is so much the opposite of him in so many ways,
Well, he does pull a gun on the one guy.
Yeah.
And that is hilarious because he didn't follow the rules.
Yeah, I think as the dude is listening to a message from someone at league headquarters, he just kind of intones into the phone. Now, of course, if this is true, it contravenes a number of league bylaws. And I'm like, I should say so. I would imagine they'd have laws in place to where that's not considered sportsmanlike conduct or what have you.
Yeah.
One thing I realized seeing this movie is just how often it's been like the one-liners have been quoted just across time by all kinds of people and other films and TV shows and stuff. Because like that World of Pain thing was
yeah, this is definitely a very quoted movie. And other things too. Like I said, they've got that festival every year here in Richmond. And on IMDb, there was a very amusing little snippet I read where I think it was Ethan Coen said that they went to a theater in Los Angeles and they saw posters for The Big Lebowski. It might have been both of them. They were at the theater And they asked about it to the girl at the counter, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's so much fun. People come dressed up as their favorite characters and all this stuff. No idea who they were." And she's like, "You ought to see it. You'd enjoy it." It's like, I'd be like, that'd be pretty funny to be in that situation. But now, of course, anyone that's seen a picture, especially Joel Coen, I think you wouldn't miss him on the street if you know what he looks like, because he's distinctive. Kind of like Tim Burton. Actually, I think him and Tim Burton are similar in a lot of ways in terms of the way, well, in a lot of ways, really. Very different sensibility overall, but but it would be interesting to see a collaboration one day. Would be. But anyway, so the dude goes home and he's putting his answering machine on. And this is where, he hears from Smokey saying, like, "I'm sorry, dude. I know it wasn't your fault, but I had to submit a report." Then we hear Brant, like, "Call me, call us. We need you." And then we hear the guy, the guy from the headquarters, and then Brant's back on again, like, "I hope you're not avoiding our call because of the rug, because that is not an issue. We could use your assistance. Call us." So he goes back, and it turns out that, I skipped our meeting with Bunny. Okay, so dude met Bunny at the mansion, and she's like painting her toenails, and it's Tara Reid, who Tara Reid was not as young as the character she was playing at that time, but she's still a lot younger than Jeff Bridges or David Huddleston.
Definitely a lot younger than she was in Sharknado.
Yeah, but this came out the year before American Pie. If I remember correctly, I think Tara Reid was the oldest member of that cast. I could be remembering that wrong, but I think she was. But still, 20-ish, roughly. She is the Big Lebowski's wife, if you will. She's sitting poolside in a bikini doing her toenails, and the dude wanders over, and she just sticks her foot out. "Blow on them." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Blow on them. I can't reach that far." And Brant comes up and introduce the dude needs to be leaving Mrs. Lebowski's. It's like, "Oh, you're Bunny." And she just leans forward. "I'll suck your cock for $1,000. and he's like, "Well."
Let me go out to my car and get it.
Well, Brant can't watch though. He has to pay $100. And he's just like, yeah. And dude looks over the railing, and we see Peter Stormare sprawled out in the pool with a beer floating next to him. You think he won't mind? Oh, he won't care. He's a nihilist. And dude's like, "Oh, that must be exhausting." I love that line too. He's a nihilist. "Oh, that must be exhausting." But what's up? Were you saying something, Dustin?
Oh no, I just like that whole interaction is so bizarre and awkward. Like it's just funny.
But yeah, and the Brant ushers them along, and dude's like, "I'm just going to go look for a money machine." Yeah. So it turns out that Bunny is now missing, and Brant and the Big Lebowski are in possession of a really bad, like, this is clearly copied from a bad movie type ransom note, where it's like, "We have Bunny, please bring $1 million in small unmarked bills," or whatever the heck it said. and dude's reading it while the Big Lebowski's droning on about his lot in life and all that kind of stuff. And dude's smoking a joint and reading this letter. And he's like, it's a bummer. It's a bummer, man. And then finally, Lebowski's just like, well, Brant will fill you in on the details. So basically, they've decided to use him as a courier in this transaction to get money back. What they don't count on is that Walter comes along and insists on them keeping the money, and he actually brought his own ringer. And
the dude actually told Walter that
he thought Bunny had kidnapped herself.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because we got another scene in the bowling alley where he's telling them about this. And we can't forget this scene, because this is the scene that introduces us to Jesus Quintana. And he is introduced to the Gypsy Kings doing a cover of Hotel California. And I just absolutely love that introduction. It's a little iffy in light of the fact that this was still an example of people of some level of ethnic background being used interchangeably. Turturro, I believe, is Italian in background, and here he's playing a Latino, and probably hasn't aged as well as it could, especially with his over-the-top accent. But the biggest thing about Quintana is that, as Walter says, yeah, he's a pervert, dude. And he's like, no, I'm serious. He's a sex offender with a record. He did 8 months in Chino for exposing himself to an 8-year-old. And so they're having all this commentary about Quintana while watching him and his cohort Liam do their thing. And then he comes up to them and he gives them a little bit of his form of dirty locker talk, I guess you could say, kind of psyching them out kind of thing. Like the at the end of which he shoot, I'm skipping the beginning of it. But anyway, so he then pivots to Walter and he's like, hey, let me tell you something, Bandero. You pull any of that shit out on the lanes with me, you pull your trigger out, I stick it up your ass and put the fucking trigger till it goes click. And the dude's like, Jesus. And Quintana's like, you said it, man. Nobody fucks with the Jesus. Which, honestly, I could be reading a lot into this, but I know the Coens are Jewish, and I could see that as them giving a little bit of commentary while also just doing a really hilarious line. But because it is a really hilarious line. But then he stalks off, and Walter comes back with one of the best single line put downs in movie history. He just leans over and he's like, 8-year-olds, dude. It's like all he has to say, you know? And honestly, that became a running joke with a friend of mine. But it was, that was interesting.
If you think about it, the dude is the only really normal person in this movie. Like, because he's watching all of this go down, and he's just like, what are you doing? And the way, like, I was. So.
Yeah. I mean, the dude has his eccentricities, too. I mean, he's a proud non-contributor to society, you could say. And you could say that, you know, Donnie is pretty weak-willed, but he's not really that weird or anything. He's just kind of weak-willed and doesn't really, make that much of a showing for himself. But yeah, so basically, the dude's got this idea that Bunny, she just kidnapped her. Bunny kidnapped herself. It's all and so he lets Walter come along. Walter brings a quote ringer, which is bag full of his dirty undies, like anyone would want.
Well, he's just using it as filler because it's like, what?
Right. But so they go to the appointed drop off, and it turns out there is no handoff. It's Walter came ready for a handoff. He came. If he even brought a freaking Uzi along, like that's not overkill.
You never know what these guys got.
That's true. But his plan is literally to just grab the nearest guy and beat it out of him. It's like, how's that going to work if it's a gunfight, But it turns out there's no actual handoff, that they're supposed to go over a bridge and throw the case overboard. And they do. And this movie does have a couple of pretty awesome needle drops. And the part where they got the crying guitar in the Creedence song is right when the thing goes out the window. And I always love the timing of that. You got Run Through the Jungle by Creedence playing through that scene. And later when the car gets stolen and Creedence actually enters into the script, it's a nice little callback, I guess you could say. But yeah, that car goes through so much. And one of the things it goes for is Walter jumping out of it with the Uzi. The Uzi goes wild and hits the car a few times before popping one of the tires. And the car runs right into a lamppost. It was already a bucket of rust.
Like the ransom goons just like blast by on like motorcycles. It's like,
exactly.
Let's set up.
Yeah. And and so of course now the dude believes that they've doomed her. And, he's kind of second guessing the whole idea that, she might have kidnapped herself. But, Walter's convinced of it. He's absolutely convinced of it. And I'll admit, in this part, I'm not even going to pretend I'm remembering all the order of the scene. So, like I said, if anyone, throw it in. But at some point, the dude gets punched out again in his apartment. He wakes up. He's laying on the carpet. And he wakes up. I love how he's listening to people bowl. Like he's got his headphones on. Yeah. He's got his Walkman, and he's listening to bowling. And he's just laying there on the carpet. And he looks up, and there's this weird-looking woman and two guys, and one of them punches him out. And then we have a reprise of The Man in Me. But the dude is flying through the air over Los Angeles after a woman on a flying carpet until he sees a bowling ball in his hand, and then he falls back to earth. And this movie has two dream sequences, and I love them both. But that's the first one. And so then you have
him waking up, and the rug is gone.
Yes, the rug is gone.
Did you mention that the cash was stolen from the vehicle?
Well, I guess this would probably be when they're back in the bowling lane. This would probably be when they're back to the bowling alley, and when they leave, his car is gone.
Yeah, but I thought that happened before the disappearing rug.
Did it?
When he got knocked out, they took his rug.
Yeah.
And I think the car was a little bit before that.
It might have been, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because we had the cops
stuff, so it's hard to keep it straight sometimes.
No, because the cops were after that, because he gets the call about the rug while he's talking to the cops. So basically they go out of the bowling alley and his car is gone. And he wasn't a parking spot, which we got to admit was a handicap spot,
yeah.
which was kind of a dick move on his part. But they had the briefcase that they thought had $1 million in it in the car, which that makes sense. So the car's gone. He's really pissed off. He slinks alone home. Meanwhile, Brant is trying frantically to reach him on the phone. And as he's walking away, Donnie's like, "Phone's ringing, dude." It's like, that was another line that's always stuck with me. It's like, the phone's ringing, And he gets home and talks to the cops. And here we have, I don't remember who one of them is, but the other one is Christian Clemenson, who played Socrates Poole on the Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. This is one of the few other roles I've seen him in, and huge fan of Briscoe County, so that was really cool seeing him there. But they're having this little conversation. Richard Gant is the other one. And they're having this conversation like, okay, so what was in the car? He's like, a tape deck and some Creedence tapes and my briefcase. In the briefcase, papers, just my papers.
Financial papers.
Yes, it's like, oh, and what do you do, sir? I'm unemployed. And or work papers, I think is what he said.
I notice a lot of these like dream sequences. One of the things interesting about seeing the newest Coen movie, is I do find a parallel in that filmmaking because they had those psychedelic sequences.
Those were weird.
Which also, which in that newer movie connected to the greater story. But if you look at this one, there's a similarity in that because a lot of the dream sequences do have a basic connection to the story because it's an inner thought process. I'm wondering if there might have been a similar thought process because I haven't seen a lot of the Coen movies use this method that I can remember anyway.
Not a lot. Raising Arizona has an extended dream at the end. No, I don't think they've done a lot of dream sequences.
So it's just an interesting kind of almost return to that concept with the psychedelic sequences in the newer movie.
And I do know the dude has one line in this one where they ask what he does for fun, and he's like the occasional acid flashback. Yeah. And certainly the ones in Travel Dolls feel more like an acid flashback than these kind of do, but
truly,
they definitely feel some drug involvement, I think. But we have Brent and the Big Lebowski are trying to find out. They're trying to find out what happened with the money. Oh, sorry, I was talking with the cops. And while they're talking, he's like, "Oh, by the way, my rug is missing." Oh, separate. It was the rug was in the car. No, it was here. Oh, a separate instance. And he's like, "Do you ever find these? Do you ever get them back?" Oh, yeah, the car will probably turn up in a few days. Wouldn't hold much hope for the tape deck though. And then the one line, or the Creedence. And it's like, well, but while they're talking, the phone rings and Maude comes on. Maude Lebowski being the Julianne Moore character. And she's like, "Hello, Mr. Lebowski. My name is Maude Lebowski. I'm the one who took your rug." And then the cop perks up, "Well, we can shut the file on that one." So we meet Maude Lebowski, and she is, in a word, weird. She is a proto-feminist of the to like the nth degree, who is clearly very, 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 very rebellious against her father. She doesn't think much of him. She really doesn't think much of his trophy wife, who's half her age. She is a kind of an artist of sorts. And later we meet a friend of hers, played by David Thewlis, in an interesting cameo. But she basically tells the dude, well, she asks him, like, does sex make you uncomfortable? All this kind of stuff, the physical act of love, coitus, or whatever. And she's like, you don't like sex, Mr. Lebowski? He's like, oh, coitus? It's like, but she shows him this scene. She says, our mutual acquaintance, Bunny, and she puts on this video for a little film called Log Jammin'. And it features one Carl Hungus who, what's up?
Classy title.
Yes. So we see she's under the name Bunny La Jolla, apparently. And and the dude recognizes Carl as Yuli. And he comes up to, he's the cable repair guy, and she, of course, greets him at the door, and and then a friend of hers wanders in. Oh, this is my friend. She came in to use the shower. And Maud's like, the story is ludicrous. And you can imagine where it goes from here. And the dude's just like, he fixes the cable. And it's an interesting little bit there. But this is actually one of the things that's a tie-in to The Big Sleep. Because the younger daughter there was involved in people who were doing illicit photography. And so here we got this porn magnate, Jackie Treehorn, who is a former employer of both Bunny, the trophy wife who's gone missing, and Yuli, the nihilist, who we come to find out is claiming to be her kidnapper, which the dude finds out in very stark relief when Yuli and his two cohorts come in carrying a ferret who the dude missed as a marmot. Nice marmot. And dude's having a nice little bubble bath with a joint and candles, and these guys come marching in, tearing up his place. His place gets trashed at least 3 times during the course of the film. And I'm reminded of the Jeff Foxworthy joke about single guys. It's like, single guys are in an apartment where the whole place can get trashed and you're out $10. What's that?
The whole scene where they throw the ferret into the bathtub with them as the torture thing.
Yes.
It cracked me up more than any other part of the movie. I don't know why it did. Maybe it's just the strangeness of it.
Because you love ferrets so much.
But it is like just crazy. And then of course lifts the ferret out.
Yeah.
Ferret looks all calm.
Yeah.
It's like it's their attack ferret, and I love that.
Yeah. And then they're like, "We want the money, Lebowski. Bring us the money, or we cut off your Johnson." And it's like and then later, and incidentally, did anyone recognize the short nihilist?
No, but I think something that's kind of fun to point out is in that scene, he's like, Johnson. Because when he was talking to the daughter, she said like a bunch of different terms for like Wang that he had never heard, and he was like, Johnson. Like that was the one that he thought was kind of like too weird,
That's true, yeah. And then later, when they're in the bowling alley, he says, they're going to cut off my Johnson. And Donnie's like, what do you want with that? But the 3 nihilists, like I said, Peter Stormare is Uli, the main one. Torsten Voges is the really tall one, or Voges, or whatever it is. He's the really tall one that's going around busting shit up with a baseball bat in that scene. And the third one, the short one, is played by Flea of Chili Peppers fame.
They were like in a band with like a really stereotypical like just German word name.
Autobahn. Yes,
Autobahn.
Autobahn. Yes,
Bro, it's like, okay.
it's sort of the techno pop.
We had him go through the records. Like, go through the record collection. You'll find it.
Right. But
I don't know how Julianne Moore kept a straight face during all that sex talk. You know.
Right. Well, she is a great actress. I mean, she can definitely, but this is definitely not her typical role.
Well, she came out.
I don't know how she
naked,
came
so.
in there. I
Go
don't know
ahead.
how she came in there naked like that. In that contraption. That was something else. When she went across and I saw her getting out of the contraption, and I'm like, she really is naked. Okay.
Right. This contraption, she has a weird body harness slash zip line that she gets in naked and goes zipping along, flinging paintbrushes as she goes. And that's her form of painting. It's like, that's creative.
It's called splatter art.
It's very creative. I have not seen it done that way before. But
I mean, she's pretty clearly just another bizarre LA character.
right.
Especially like during that intro where she's just like saying all that stuff to him. I remember being like, men are often uncomfortable with the word vagina, and she just keeps repeating it in his face, expecting him to like flip out, and he's just like, okay.
coitus.
Right.
Which I wonder if she got that from The Big Bang Theory. So.
Well,
Well,
this predates Big Bang Theory, but
this is like 20 years before that travesty of a show, but anyway, it was kind of funny that she was like, people seem to keep trying to like mess with the dude, and he's either unaware enough of like what they're saying or doesn't know enough words, or I don't know. It seems like nothing really bothers him all that much,
Yeah. He is quite unflappable. There are things that bother him. He clearly is annoyed as we go along. He gets annoyed a lot with Walter.
I mean, that rug tied the room together.
Yes. Yes, it really tied the room together. It really did. So she, though, in that scene with the Autobahn record and what have you, she basically seems to agree with the assessment that Bonnie was not kidnapped, that she is, as she says, taking him for the proverbial ride. And this is where we find out that as far as she is concerned, she believes that her father is embezzling from the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers Fund. And that he stole that money, that he took it to give to her, that he took it saying that it was to pay for her ransom. But as far as she's concerned, it was all a lie. She definitely believes, she knows he took it out of the fund, and that's what she tells Lebowski. So, okay, I may have misspoken a little bit about what she's saying and what she believes, but she definitely tells him it came out of that fund. And this was a fun part where it's like, she seems like she's so much better than her father in several ways. But this is where we learn that she's kind of an insincere, entitled princess too, where she starts talking about the fund and the dude's like, oh yeah, the achievers, and yeah, the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers, yes, and proud we are of all of them. She said it with such sincerity. Yeah. But basically, it turns out that this is where she tells the dude that her father doesn't actually have any money, that it really was her mother's fortune that he is living off of, and that she's like, we tried letting him run a business once, but he didn't do very well at it.
Which, really tracks too with like his, I did everything myself. I worked for it, you bum. And everybody I've ever met who talks to anybody like that is like a way worse bum than the person they're shitting on could ever hope to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As the man says, methinks he doth protest too much,
Yes.
It's but yeah, there's a lot of truth to that, unfortunately. But we also have okay, so this is where the dude puts it all together, and he realizes with Walter's help, of course, Walter giving him that bit, like he puts it together that basically they stole that he didn't have the money in the first place. That, as he told Walter, we threw out a ringer for a ringer. That the Big Lebowski didn't actually give them $1 million. He gave them a briefcase with like a phone book and some other stuff in it, again, for the weight, which when you think about it, still makes a hell of a lot more sense than dirty underwear. But, like phone book at least is going to kind of texturally feel like, the right shape and whatever ish. And like I said, apologies that I am just totally getting these muddled. And again, everyone feel free to pop out if they've got something that I'm missing. But somewhere in here, the dude ends up getting another visit from Wu and his friend to go see Jackie Treehorn. And he goes to see him. And I'm trying to remember if the other meeting with Lebowski and Brandt came before that. I feel like it did. Where they came and caught him in the... No. Yes, it did. Okay, he came home from Maud's with a White Russian in his hand. Just living it up. He gets out of the limo and gets manhandled into the limo across the street. And he's like, hey, watch it. There's a beverage here, man. And he gets thrown into this limo with Brandt and Lebowski. And they accuse him of stealing their money and all this stuff. And this is where he tries to play it off as she kidnapped herself, man. He keeps talking about, hey, you weren't privy to all this new shit. He keeps talking about all this, new info that he has, new shit that came to light and all that stuff. And finally, they kind of look like maybe they're moved a little. And somewhere, the Lebowski's like, Brandt, show him the envelope. He's like, oh, you already have a check made out. Okay. So he opens up. And while he's opening up this gauze, Lebowski is like basically just saying, since you have failed in the simple task, I have no choice but to tell these people to come after you, Mr. Lebowski. He's like, God is my witness, I will not abide another toe. And we see a little toe there with a little toenail polish on it.
As we see in the background image here.
Yes. And of course, Walter tries to play it off as, obviously it wasn't a toe. They're in a diner. And the dude's like, no, it was a toe. It's like, it had her nail polish. He's like, oh, like it's so hard to get a toe. I can get you a toe by 1 p.m., with nail polish. And a couple scenes later, we do see the origin of the toe. It is indeed not Bunny, but we haven't gotten quite that far yet because we see Bunny on the way home from Jackie Treehorn's. Okay, I got my order in place. The dude gets taken there, and this was, I think, was it Dustin that mentioned the trampoline scene?
Yeah, that was the one thing I remembered from the first time I saw it. So
That is a memorable scene. Partly because of the song that's playing. It is this weird, creepy ass song that they're playing. Like, whoa. But you got this girl bouncing on a trampoline. One of the guys, we get a slow-mo look at the guy's face as he's watching her, and it's hilarious. But we zoom away from there, and out of the shadows comes Jackie Treehorn, who's played by Ben Gazzara, who was in a handful of really odd films in the late 90s, and this was one of them. This one and there was a Christina Ricci movie that I'm trying to think of. Oh, man, I'm just drawing a blank on it. But it was... Oh, it looks like we lost Tammy there for a minute.
Indeed.
Well, hopefully she'll be back shortly. We had... he takes the dude into his abode. And I gotta say, did anyone else get Bond vibes here?
Like Villain Lair? A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Like he is living in this pad that looks straight out of a Bond film. And they're playing music that sounds like, I think it might be Henry Mancini. If it's not, it sounds like it could be. It definitely sounds like it looks and sounds something right out of the 60s. And the Buffalo 66, that's the movie I was trying to think of. That's one that might be fun to cover one of these days.
I know I have that film in my collection. I just haven't watched it.
I haven't seen it in a hot minute. But that was actually one of the early like indie films I saw. Written by, directed by, starring Vincent Gallo. But anyway, back to this one. Did they have their little discussion while they're talking? Jackie takes a phone call and wanders into the other room. Dude goes and does the little shading trick and sees a weird picture of a vulgar picture of a man and his Johnson. For some reason, puts it in his pocket and then rushes back over to the couch. And while he's talking to Treehorn, he gets a little woozy and comes to realize that Treehorn did a kind of a Bond villain move. He drugged his drink. And he passes out, and you hear the stranger, darkness washed over the dude, darker than a black cow's tuchus on a this very night.
Very dramatic, yeah.
Very dramatic.
And
then
he gave him a Mickey.
He gave him a Mickey, yes.
That's the most, and that's the one that follows the weirdest dream sequence of the entire movie.
And again, I will always hold that this is one of the best dreams in any movie ever. Anyone that can combine in one sequence a drug-fueled porn fantasy featuring bowling, cable repair outfits, Saddam Hussein, women in Valkyrie outfits, and all of it set to freaking Kenny Rogers. I just find that's hilarious on every level. And I love the song, too. It's actually Kenny Rogers in the first edition just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in. Much trippier song than most of the stuff Rogers became known for later. But basically, we get the dude. What's up? Yeah. Got the dude wandering into this I guess you could call it a bowling alley, wearing his cable repair getup. Because obviously he's thinking about log jamming. Oh, and there's even a title sequence. Gutter Balls is apparently the title of this one. Very suggestive visuals.
That is actually a really nasty, like indie horror movie that was made many years later.
Oh wow! Why am I not surprised?
There's a called the Penetration Edition, which has
Oh dear God!
stuff that they had to stuff that gets you an X these days. So still in the book.
Stuff they had to strike from the first edition, but they could spare this time around.
Well, it was something they had to cut to not be classified as porn.
Right. So anyway, we got this sequence that is just so trippy and weird and fun, and just and let's not forget that it also includes nihilists and giant freaking scissors, because like any good acid trip, this one turns. We've got, the dude gets his bowling shoes. He's tap dancing down to Julianne Moore, who's surrounded by hot dancers. They do their little thing. They kind of bowl, but it's actually the dude who's floating through underneath all these girls. At some point, he rotates and gets a very obviously nice view from the look on his face. But right before he hits the pins, that's where it turns, and suddenly he is running for his life from 3 red-clad nihilists carrying scissors bigger than they are. And then we fade into reality where he is running down the road, and a cop comes up behind him, takes him into the sheriff's office. The sheriff of Malibu is not a fan of of the dude. He is clearly, you could say he's on Jackie's payroll, or it could just be their friends, or he probably benefits from Jackie Treehorn living in his community. Let's just put it that way. And he is not happy at this person who supposedly was ejected forcibly from the party. And then the dude gets a coffee mug thrown in his face, gets handily thrown out of the office, and told to stay out of Malibu. Stay. and on the cab ride home, he is nursing his head, and he has the gall to complain about the cabbie's choice of music, which is the Eagles. And I got to admit, it is kind of an amusing irony that this person of all people would hate the Eagles, especially that much. You would think that someone like the dude would be all about the Eagles, or at least I would have thought that, but he apparently just hates them, and he ends up getting thrown out of the cab over it. So you don't like all this, you get your own thing. But is this where the car resurfaces? The car does resurface eventually.
Eventually, he does get a call from the cops, like, your car has been found.
Yes. And he gets into it, and it's like, what's that smell? Yeah, we think a homeless guy probably used it for a bathroom, or maybe slept in it and moved on. And he's like, are you going to catch these guys? You got any leads?
Yeah, we got the task force on it. Great.
We got to work it in shifts. It's like,
they got to stop laughing like the whole time. Wow, thanks, you dick.
Yeah. So, and again, one of the great musical moments in this one, we get more credence. The dude is going home, smoking another joint, and listening to Looking Out the Back Door, which I got to admit, this movie introduced me to that song, and that is one of my favorite songs to do at karaoke. I just absolutely love singing that song. It's so much fun, and I can actually sing it without butchering it, which is nice. But he has noticed someone following him, and he gets distracted by this person, and he tries to flick his joint out the window, not realizing the window is jammed shut, and the joint lands in his lap, and needless to say, the car suffers another crash, and eventually he does meet this guy who's trailing him, and it's John Polito, another Coen regular, who calls himself a brother Seamus. He's like, "What, you an Irish monk?" "No, man, I'm like you. I'm a dick, man. I'm like you, and I dig your work." And this is also a callback to The Big Sleep, because there was a short fella who ended up coming at our main guy. It's going to bug me. But anyway, but again, one of the callbacks there. And meanwhile, I think it's while the dude is on the way home. I'm pretty sure it was while the dude is on the way home from the garden party that we see a car racing by, blaring "Viva Las Vegas." Philip Marlowe, that's the character's name. Jeez, how did I forget that? Bogey's character from The Big Sleep. But anyway, so the car goes racing by, and we see Bunny Lebowski at the wheel, Viva Las Vegas being kind of a clue as to where she has been. And we see a close-up of both of her feet, and they both have all 10 toes. And then we see the nihilist at a Waffle House, I think it was a Waffle House, with a fourth person, a girl, who's clearly one of their girlfriends. And we zoom in and see that she is missing a toe. So now we know where the toe came from. And that was a brief cameo by Amy Mann. I like to point that out because Amy Mann actually is a Richmond native. She grew up in Bon Air, and the year after this, she became an Oscar nominee for the movie Magnolia. So that's kind of cool. We got our little local person kind of done good. She's done a lot of good music. Anyone who hasn't heard it should look it up. But other than that, let's see. I guess we're at are we up to the part with the confrontation, the final confrontation with the Big Lebowski?
Not quite. Did we beat up that? Did we try to shake down that little kid who stole his car?
Oh yes. Okay. So when he crashes the car, he finds a assignment, a high school paper covered in red ink, wedged up under the driver's seat, wedged in that crack in the driver's seat. And it's a young fella named Larry Sellers. So Walter does some digging and finds out that where Larry Sellers lives. And he finds out that he is the son of Arthur Digby Sellers, the guy who wrote most of the episodes of Brandon, which apparently Walter and the dude are both big fans of the show. So they go try to shake down the kid. And either the kid really is a dunce or he just wasn't having it. One or the other. It could be played either way. But they tried.
And I love how the father was on it for iron lung.
An hour long, yeah.
Oh, I knew as soon as he took that crowbar to that car.
Yeah.
That was not the kid's car.
Yes.
I knew that
Apparently this scene is a feigned example apparently it's one of the famed examples of how and I had totally forgotten about this, but I'm going to mention it before I forget. Irene Ahoga Lopez, the one who plays the housekeeper. If I'm remembering correctly, she also played Maris Crane's housekeeper in Frasier, so that was kind of a fun thing to see that. But there is a very famous redub from here. Walter tries very hard to interrogate the kid, and they pretty quickly, this is one where the dude is having trouble reining it in. He is having trouble just being calm and mellow. And the pretty quickly Walter realizes, you know what, this isn't getting us anywhere. So he stands up and he says, I just want you, he says the famous line, "This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass." And then he yells that several times as he takes the crowbar to the car in front of the house. Apparently, this was redubbed to, "This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps." Which apparently a lot of people love that dub. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's considered a great redub.
Now, was that the thing they mentioned? I don't know if you know what I'm talking about in the introduction that they have to one of the anniversary discs.
Okay.
Grand Lebowski. It was redubbed by, and they're talking about the redub. It was I can't think of it was an extra on that DVD.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds really fun.
But it was a hilarious introduction that they played. And they had talked about, like, I can't think of some of the other things, like alternate names for the film and so on. It was a hilarious intro.
Well, it sounds a little bit like, if you see the first Coen Brothers film, Blood Simple, it is not a funny movie. It is a dark movie. It's a full-on Southern fried film noir that is a very, very, very dark. And it's kind of amusing. One of the bonus features that they did for an anniversary edition that I really wish they had put on the Criterion edition, but they did not. They created a fake British film critic who did a complete commentary of the movie, but he was a total idiot who didn't know what he was talking about. And it's hilarious. It's one of the best commentaries I've ever seen. And this, what you said, reminded me a little bit of that. I wonder if they would do something like that. But I really wish these kind of things would be more likely to be on the Criterion editions. Talking about redubs of the movie, there is also a book by Adam Bertocci called The Two Gentlemen of Lebowski, and it's the entire thing written in Shakespearean English. And that is a really fun book. It's very much worth checking out. But there's also the Shakespeare Star Wars that is similar, but it's a different author. But those were a lot of fun. But at least I think it was a different author. But anyway, back to it. They tried to shake down the kid, but it turns out that no, it's a neighbor who just bought that car last week. And
because they think the kid bought the car with the stolen money, and so that's what they just assumed this fancy new car belonged to the kid.
And it was after that. It was after that the dude realized that they didn't have the money in the first place. That's right. It was after that. And that's when they confront the Big Lebowski. They let him know that you were stealing from inner city kids. You didn't care about money. You didn't, no one kidnapped her. And in fact, at this point, she's just dancing around. He's like, Yeah, she went for a weekend with her friends and didn't tell anyone. And now she's back, no thanks to you, basically.
What do you mean, no thanks to? We didn't. You conscripted us.
Right.
I do like how his friend is like, you were gonna steal that money, and it's like, that was your idea too.
Right.
You jerk.
And
Like,
apparently,
I laugh at that big confrontation.
I do love how it comes together.
Mhm.
Like I say, I must have gotten bored and slept through half of it the other times I watched it, but I was lucky enough to be fully awake this time. And I admit, the whole story is brilliant, the way that they do it, with the money not actually being in the briefcase. And of course, they don't prove it 100% either, just to keep you guessing, just in case you miss something. So it is great, like with the briefcase empty, in order for them to just keep that extra million, because it's really the daughter that has the control of the entire fortune. And that is a great thing overall. That really was a huge twist.
Right.
Too bad for the nihilist, though.
Right.
That poor girlfriend who lost her toe.
Yeah, she definitely got the short end of the stick with this one.
But they deserved that beatdown they got at the end of it all. The poor Donnie dies.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one. So first we have the confrontation with Lebowski, and this is interesting. We mentioned it before a couple of times. Like I said, we did cover Raising Arizona, and the Coens and Nicolas Cage all went on record saying that was an interesting collaboration, because basically Cage's work, his work method is to basically just keep throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks. Like, he is actually a really good actor. He just likes to go places that seem insane sometimes, but he looks for something new in every role, basically, and he likes to search for it. The Coens, on the other hand, have every beat planned out. I think IMDb said that this film has the dude utter the word man 147 times, I think is what I read. And according to all involved, probably every one of those was scripted. Maybe. It doesn't feel like it. The way Jeff Bridges inhabits the role, it doesn't feel like he's reciting a script. And it's one of the reasons why many people over the years have cited this as one of the best unsung performances. Because it got no love from the award circuit when it came out. But now people look at it and go, man, this was and part of it is he fully inhabits the role, and it doesn't feel like he's reading a script. But almost every line in the movie was scripted. Almost every beat was scripted. And supposedly one of the only exceptions, every now and then, if someone says something, either they slip up or they flub a line or they ad-lib, and the Coens like it, they'll include it. Every now and then it happens. And apparently when the dude gets flustered and he calls Lebowski, "You human paraquat," it's like, that came out of nowhere. Apparently that was an ad-lib, and supposedly it was one of the only ad-lib lines in the whole movie. But the Coens enjoyed it, so they kept it. So, and I want to remember, I knew at one point, does anyone remember offhand exactly what the significance of that is? I know it has something to do with Vietnam. Yes.
Using the wrong term.
Paraquat is a...
I don't know what that is, and that's not common.
It was used as an herbicide, but
Oh, like an Agent Orange joke. Jeez.
well, here we go. During the late 70s, a controversial program sponsored by the U.S. government sprayed it on cannabis fields in Mexico. Following Mexican efforts to eradicate marijuana on poppy fields, the U.S. helped by sending helicopters and assistance with this chemical. Okay, so it wasn't Vietnam, but it was Vietnam era. And yes, if it was used to kill weed, I could see how the dude would see that as an insult.
Okay, here is the slang term of paraquat.
Okay.
An inanimate object that resembles a paraquat with a fucked skull.
Do what?
Damn paraquats keep fucking with my head. I guess that's the way that it's been used. So
I feel like the first example works more for what we're talking. But anyway, yeah, interesting. So yeah,
I thought that was in that weed stuff that they keep saying on. Use this weed killer, call this attorney, because I thought that was in that weed killer.
yeah, probably. And that's why it is considered toxic. But then again, weed killers are by definition toxic. By definition, they're
human paraquat, a mean and selfish person.
Right. Well, I wonder if that is
nerd word is that?
What's up?
What kind of nerd word is that? We had to look up 10 different definitions to get that.
I'm actually wondering if Dave's definition.
Well, that actually is from the website called Dudism.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll bet you that usage is from this movie. I'm willing to bet that it came specifically from this movie. So someone mentioned the confrontation with the nihilists. So I believe that is this also the final confrontation with Quintana? Because the Walter had made a big stink. We kind of rolled right over that one. Walter made a big stink about, I don't roll on Shabbos. They were scheduled to go up against Liam and Quintana on a Saturday, and Walter was having none of it. So they rescheduled for Wednesday. And I think this was the one where Quintana came up and just said, what's this shit? What's this day of rest bullshit? It don't matter to Jesus. Which again, I really feel like that was probably a dig at Christians, but hilarious one. I love it. But he's like, Liam and me, we are going to fuck you in the ass on Saturday. We'll fuck you in the ass on Wednesday instead. You got a day Wednesday, baby. Did anyone else feel like he sounded like Pee Wee Herman at that moment? Probably was intentional, but I could be wrong. But because I think this was at the point in time where Pee Wee Herman was kind of on the outs with most people. But they kind of thought of him as a pervert. But anyway. Wow, everyone's so quiet. There we go. But as we mentioned before, this is the last time. What's up?
Nothing.
But as we mentioned before, Donnie misses his final bowl. He misses what should have been a pretty easy pin. He gets the other 9 down, which I'm also a little unclear about this. He just goes back to his seat and sulks. And I'm like, considering how he's been bowling, wouldn't he have gotten another shot? But whatever the case, he misses one. And again, that kind of foreshadowed what was about to happen. So they go out into the parking lot, and the dude's car is on fire. And he's like, it finally happened. It killed my car. The car finally got put out of its misery after all this time. But you know, the nihilists are like acting all threatening, like, you know, and he's like, no, we know you never had it, you dipshit. We know you never had her. He's like, we want some money. And the one of them was like, my girlfriend gave up her toe. And it's not fair. And he's like, and I think Walter was one of that, fair? Who's a nihilist here? But, you know, Donnie's like cowering, and Walter's like, don't worry, but these men are nihilists. They won't hurt anyone. You know, but one of them's brandishing a sword, you know, and they do have a little bit of a scuffle that ends with, I believe, one of them getting a bowling ball to the gut to not feel good. And they end up scurrying off, but then, you know, Walter's like, we got a man down. And they go and find, you know, Donnie sitting there clutching his chest, and, you know, they call the ambulance. And then in what could be seen as a really abrupt cut, or could be seen as a hilariously abrupt cut, we cut to Walter and the dude in a funeral parlor waiting for the guy to come, you know, bring their urn, or to come bring their bill, or basically, you know, take care of their business there. And
so the way this was going, I almost thought they were going to like have inherited some money from Donnie, but instead, like, they have to pay like all these bills for just the whole thing. Like,
it's $140.
They're gonna make them pay $180 for the urn, even though they're scattering the ashes.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, you need to
you have to
routes around here, and they
have to transmit the remains to you in a receptacle. That's $180. It's our most modestly priced receptacle.
So they ended up getting like
a
magic.
This is a thing I learned in a death and dying class, actually, is that a lot of like funeral homes will gouge the absolute shit.
Oh, they will.
Because like, you won't be in the state of mind to like try and shop around.
It is expensive. Yes.
In all fairness, I know that ashes, a person's ashes, do not fit in a coffee can. So they, I'm guessing they must have told them dispose of the rest and just give us enough for the coffee can, because
a coffee can is going to be at least as big as your typical urn. So they probably had the same amount of ashes they would have had either way.
Yeah, because I know from just, for instance, my father was cremated.
Right.
It was a giant freaking box of ashes.
But
they will give it to you in a cardboard box, and they won't charge you that much for it.
Okay. Probably depends on the funeral parlor you go to. But these people were apparently willing to work with them, because apparently they were able to go to a Rouse and get a coffee can. And just for the record, the Center of the Universe Donnie beer is a coffee can. Like the markings on the side, it's like an old-fashioned red coffee can. Which is hilarious and bad at the same time. And it's a coffee-flavored beer as well. The El Dorino is a White Russian-flavored stout. So, you know, that's kind of fun. And incidentally, we do see a lot of White Russians as the film goes on. A lot of references to them. At one point, dude calls them Caucasians, and I kind of picked that up for a little while. A little affectation. And one scene that we kind of glossed over, a couple of scenes, after Maud has the dude punched out, she tells him she gives him the name of a doctor and says, go see him. He's a good man and thorough. And she says that same line more than once. He's a good man and thorough. And when the dude finally sees him, he's like, oh, you drop your shorts, please? No, she hit me right here. I understand that. Will you drop your shorts, please?
Very thorough.
And we come to find out later why he was so thorough, because after a tryst with Maud, he almost loses his White Russian when he realizes that she is trying to conceive. So he's like, let me tell you about the dude.
Like, don't worry, you won't have to do anything. We'll never talk to you. It'll be fine. It's like,
Right.
I'm not really comfortable with this. I don't feel good.
It was that was
I
kind of an
couldn't-
interesting. What's up?
I couldn't believe when she said that either. He like basically almost he spit out his strength.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing
Like,
she
well,
did
that
was
would
she put herself in a fetal position.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like
But
I said,
then
a good
he-
position for. That
Well,
was
then
actually
even
where the
that- he
dude
even
realized.
said that he said that
Yeah,
explains
that was
the
where he
doctor.
realized. Yeah, but that was also where he realized what the Big Lebowski had actually been up to, and that was right before they went and confronted him. But before that, he was talking about. He's like, this is a really complicated case, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, and this was another line that I had borrowed a lot when I was younger. Fortunately, I'm adhering to a pretty strict drug regimen to keep my mind limber. It's pretty fun. So basically, they go and to the beach. Walter gives a eulogy, shakes the coffee can right as the wind kicks up, and he turns around to see that the dude is covered in Donnie. And it's like, obviously, they have a little bit of a tiff there, like everything's a travesty with you, all that stuff. And then finally, they hug it out, and Walter's like, "Fuck it, dude, let's go bowling," And so we get a final bowling scene, and we get our final brief conversation between the dude and the stranger. And this leads with the dude walking away with probably one of his most famous lines: "The dude abides," which I believe is the central tenet of dudism, actually. I could be wrong. Dave, if you were on that website, you might know, but I think that's pretty much their central tenet. And then he's like, the stranger looks at the camera. He's like, "The dude abides." I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that. The dude taking her easy for all us sinners. And
I look at Dudism as kind of a spin-off of the Taoist religion.
Probably, at least a little bit. Was someone else about to speak up? I couldn't.
No, we're fine.
Okay. So he gives his closing narration. He's like, "Made me laugh anyway, in parts. I didn't like seeing Donnie go, but I happen to know there's a little Lebowski on the way." And so he just kind of gives that big highfalutin, or starts to get this big highfalutin send off. And, oh, shoot. Listen to me. I'm rambling again. It's like, well, let me just, I'll see you a little further along down the trail, basically, and just, does this little salute. And then we go off into, we have a weird sort of thing where we're listening to Dead Flowers, and then it launches again as this stranger is done speaking and the credits start up. Nice little Townes Van Zandt song. And that's pretty much it. Credits roll, and that's it. That's the Big Lebowski. So before we go into production, is there anything plot-wise or character-wise that I missed? Any cameos that didn't get a shout-out that y'all want to give a shout-out to, or anything like that?
Well, I wanted to say at the very beginning, when we were,
Mhm.
when it first starts, I was listening, I'm looking at David, and then they start putting, who's in it and everything. I knew that was Sam Elliott right from the very beginning in his voice. And then all of a sudden
Oh, yeah.
it puts him, it puts someone, I'm like, I knew that was Sam Elliott talking.
He is a very distinctive voice. Very, very distinctive voice. Yeah.
He's always
That
been
was,
one of my favorite actors, so I knew that was him.
Mhm.
I was just waiting to see it on the screen,
Right. All right, so production. I already mentioned that this is kind of a period piece. It takes place in the early 90s, and it centers on two characters who, in their own way, are basically stuck in the 70s. Supposedly, Jeff Bridges provided all his own wardrobe out of the stuff he used to wear back in the day. Uh, so those crazy shirts he's wearing, that sweater, that's apparently all Jeff Bridges. But Mary Zofri's longtime Coen collaborator does most of the costuming in here. You had a lot of common ground in their films, a lot of people they work with over and over again, and a lot of familiar names behind the scenes in this one. And their co-editor was Trisha Cook, Ethan's wife, who was his cohort on the new film. She didn't always get an editing credit with their movies, but she did with this one. And like I said, I think it was their first time with, well, we'll get to music in a minute. But in terms of the overall production, what are y'all's thoughts on that? You feel like they did a pretty solid job there?
I mean, it's pretty well done. There's nothing that doesn't really work for me in this.
Yeah, I like the dream sequences. They were very impressive.
Even though they include some CG that hasn't dated that well,
I
think the fact that it was dream sequence.
The dream sequences,
right?
It's kind of detrimental to why it's called.
What's that?
I didn't say anything else, but why it's called.
Yeah, you cut off. Okay, kind of detrimental to that.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why it's called become a cult classic, because of those dream sequences. They trip people out, and I think it's memorable.
Right, they are that. So, as far as the music, like I said, I think this was their first collaboration with T-Bone Burnett. They've gone on together to work on a number of films together. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Intolerable Cruelty. And if I recall correctly, actually most of their recent films. And there are some original music pieces from Carter Burwell, who does the scores for most of their films. He did an original techno-pop piece that I guess is supposed to be one of the Autobahn tracks. And funny thing is, there's actually another musical piece in the film that is not by Carter Burwell, but it sounds so much at home in a Coen Brothers film, you'd think it was by him. But like I said, I do think personally that this film has some of the best needle drops in the last 30, 40 years. But what are y'all's thoughts overall on the music that they used?
I thought the music was great.
I noticed that there were at least. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, the songs seemed to fit with when they put them in, and they were good songs. Right. So I thought the music was really good.
Good time. Funny side note, I have a copy of the soundtrack. I couldn't find it. It's in storage, and I didn't want to go looking for it. But it has a lot of the songs that are featured in the film, most of them. If I remember correctly, it's missing 3 notable songs. And one could look at it as an actual, they probably did, partly rights. They were probably 3 of the more expensive songs. But I like to look at it as the people who did the soundtrack were looking at the movie and actually playing it according to the movie. Because Peaceful Easy Feeling is not on the physical soundtrack. So if the dude hated the Eagles that much, it makes sense that he would not have wanted it on the soundtrack. Wow. And neither one of the Creedence songs, Run Through the Jungle and Looking Out My Back Door, are prominently featured in the film. They're not on the soundtrack. And considering that the Creedence tapes were missing for half the film, I like to think that's why those 3 songs weren't on the soundtrack, but I could be wrong. But
Brandon, you were going to say something?
One that what I felt like was a prominent
What's
song
that?
in it, the Elvis song, which they even do a cover of it at the
actually,
end.
they're both covers.
Yeah.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think when Bunny's in the car, I believe it's the ZZ Top version.
Yeah.
And at the end credits, it's Sean Colvin doing the song. And come to think of it, what's up?
The song that I'm taking from a soundtrack that I had never heard before was the Kenny Rogers with the first edition.
Yeah.
A song. I had never heard that before, and I like it.
Oh yeah. I can't
dropped
remember.
in to see what.
Yeah. I can't remember if I'd heard it before or not, but I heard it. Oh, okay. No. Oye Como Va's also missing from the soundtrack. So it probably was a rights thing. But again, I just find it hilarious that those 3 particularly ones were missing. I don't think there was a plot reason for Oye Como Va. I think that was purely a rights thing. But yes, Lujan is written by Henry Mancini. That was the song playing in the scene with Jackie Treehorn. Moon or Stamping Ground, which is written by Moondog, or performed by Moondog with orchestra. That's the one that, again, I feel like that sounds like a Carter Burwell song, but it's not. There's one called Dick on a Case that is pure Carter Burwell. And then V Globen is the one that's supposed to, I think, be an Audubon song. But, it would have been really cool if Flea was actually playing on that, but I don't think he was. But anyway, actually, Flea and Amy, man, they could have done that together. That would have been cool. Yeah. So, actually, I will say most of the songs on the soundtrack, this probably was my introduction to them. And that Bob Dylan song, The Man in Me, is so catchy. It's like every time I know I'm going to watch the movie, that song gets stuck in my head for days in advance. And it did this time. It was stuck in my head for several days. I got to watch the movie, get that song out. But anyway, and I love the cover they include, the Gypsy Kings cover of Hotel California. I just think that's a really fun cover. I won't say it's better than the original because the original is awesome, but I love that cover. It's one of the few that almost lives up, I think. Anyway, so I guess it is beyond time to talk about favorites. So let's just say we'll keep it simple. We'll do favorite character and favorite scene. If you want to throw out a favorite line as well, feel free. And I guess we'll start with you, Brandon.
The marmot and the marmot scene.
And I guess your favorite quote is "Nice marmot." All right. What about you, Dave?
Favorite scenes and favorite characters. Let's see. My favorite character, I think, is Julianne Moore. Next to our dude. And favorite scene. I would have to say the ferret scene.
Okay. All right. How about you, Dustin?
It's kind of hard to pick. I think pretty much anything with John Goodman where he was just going crazy on people was a lot of fun. Or I don't know. It's hard to pick one favorite thing in this. Like I'm going to kind of punt a little bit in that regard.
Okay. And so I guess you got Walter, I guess, is your favorite character then as well? Or is that
I think it would be Lebowski himself, just because it felt like, oh, this just feels like me trying to navigate the insane people around me and like the awful stuff that happens to me. Like he was very relatable.
right?
It's like you have somebody like just jumping up and down, losing their mind in front of you, and you're more confused than afraid.
Right.
I relate to that character a lot.
Okay. Good deal. Interesting side note I want to throw out here. When I saw this the first time, I think I'd seen Jeff Bridges maybe in a couple of things. Like I wasn't super familiar with him as an actor. But I knew of the Bridges. Of course, I'd seen the Hot Shots movies many times, so I'd seen Lloyd Bridges in those movies. But so this was kind of a new thing for me. And it's interesting because I watched this around Oscar season that year of 2001, I think. And there was a movie that was up for a couple of awards called The Contender. Joan Allen, I think, was up for actress. And I think Jeff Bridges may have been the other nomination. And he played the President of the United States. And there's a lot of similarity in the character, but that character was very clean cut, very in control. He was exactly the sort of person that the Big Lebowski in here would look up to, although probably talk crap about him behind his back. And I just found it interesting that I saw those two Jeff Bridges movies almost back to back, and I was like, wow, he can act. He's got some range. So it's always kind of fun when you get to do that, you know. But I'd totally forgotten about that until just now. But anyway, Tammy, how about you?
The car is my favorite. That poor thing.
That poor car.
No, we finally killed it.
I mean, everybody else was great too, but I felt sorry for it. But my favorite scene is the ferret. So okay. I used to have a ferret at one time years ago. So
right, and they probably wouldn't be too happy. They probably wouldn't be too happy to just suddenly get tossed in the bathtub.
And to all those who are wondering, ferrets do swim.
It wouldn't be happy to get like totally tossed, but ours didn't mind. It likes swimming. It like, you know, but it, you know, if you just tossed it in there with like the bubbles and everything, it probably wouldn't be very happy. But ours was happy. It liked to just swim around. It was fun.
Now, one thing I don't know, but I'm curious about now, ferrets are in the weasel family, the mustelid family, and
they smell terrible.
What's up?
They smell terrible.
Right, but the several character, the same family includes otters, and of course they are very, very good in the water. And from what I understand, most weasels, minks, stoats, you know, they can swim if they need to. Mm-hmm. If it had been a marmot is just another name for a groundhog. I don't think they swim so good. And it makes me wonder if the Coens originally intended a marmot and were told, no, you are not putting a marmot in a bathtub. And then they may have decided to keep it that way because it was amusing to call a ferret a marmot. You know? I wonder,
Most people wouldn't know the difference.
Right. But anywho, I got to admit, this is one that I have trouble picking favorites too, especially because my favorites shift over the years. When I first saw this, I thought Quintana was the funniest character ever. And I probably would have cited the line, I stick it up your ass and pull the trigger till it goes click, as my favorite, just because the way he says it and everything just cracked me up. But
you just set one of mine off. Oh,
yeah,
I do remember what my favorite thing was.
huh?
When Walter is just like talking about Vietnam, and like every time he like tries to like flex I'm a veteran on people, like he has this thing he likes to say, my friends died face down in the mud, and it's like at one point I heard that, I just didn't know it was from this. And
Yeah.
I say that all the time to be like really dramatic, like they didn't die face down in the mud. And now I know where that comes from. I can't believe I forgot that.
Right. Yeah, that's always an interesting thing. Like, and I do like. There's one part where he starts doing that, and the dude's like, "Walter, that has nothing to do with this," and he's like, "Well, there is a literal connection." No, there is no connection. But yeah, and actually another line that really stuck out in my mind. There is an epithet that is used a handful of times in one of the early conversations. I'm not going to repeat it here, but the dude says it, and then Walter says it in passing, and then, on the way to a rant. And then this is one of those ones where he stops himself mid-rant, and he's like, also, dude, that is not the preferred nomenclature. I always loved the way he did that. He stopped himself mid-rant in the way he said that, the way he checked the dude. It amused me the way he stated it. But basically, for me, it's hard to pick a favorite. Walter and Quintana both amuse the hell out of me, but I wouldn't say I like either of them, especially Quintana. I like the stranger, but he has such a small role. I guess I would have to go with the dude as my overall favorite. As far as scenes, there's just so many good ones, and a lot of them are really brief. And like I said, like the whole, where Walter just says 8-year-olds, dude, that's just such a great put down. I just absolutely love that as a put down. And the whole marmot scene is pretty hilarious. Yes, it's pretty hilarious. I probably have to go with the Gutterball's dream sequence. If I had to pick one, that would probably have to be my favorite scene. Again, just the idea of a drug-induced porn fantasy with a Kenny Rogers soundtrack, it's hilarious to me on every level. I got to go with that as my favorite. Yeah. So I guess that's about it. Does anyone have any last-minute bits of wisdom or commentary or whatever, or are we ready to hand it on back to Dave?
No, man, but I guess we can all consider us dudes and dudettes, right?
Well, I guess that about does, or about wraps her all up, That rug really kept the room together.
Yeah, that's just like your opinion, man.
Oh, we didn't say that, did we?
That's my favorite line of the movie.
Actually, I have that sticker. I have that magnet on my refrigerator. that I can't believe we skipped one of the most quoted lines in the movie.
Well, there's so many of them in this movie. That's the thing. Like, I can't even remember all of them. Even my favorite things, I said like almost every day. Like,
Right.
I couldn't remember until something like, oh yeah, they did. That was in there. Like, there's just so much stuff.
But yeah, it's like Quintana comes up and says something to them. I can't remember. I think it's something like Liam and me are going to fuck you up or something like that. And then the dude's just like, yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man. Yeah. No, man, I can't believe I skipped that. But anyway, back to it, Dave.
Alrighty. Well, let's go around and tell the audience a little bit about who we are. Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am the Crypt of Horrors on YouTube, where I collect and discuss horror movie stuff. We're trying valiantly to get some new stuff made, but things just keep getting in the way. But hopefully we'll have something new for everybody real soon. And so just go there and subscribe. The Crypt of Horrors on YouTube. I am Cryptaxis, Cryptaxis on Twitter, and I hang out there a lot, so you can hear my horror movie and other thoughts on there. And there's also an Instagram, also the Crypt of Horrors on, Instagram. So I post a little more frequently there sometimes, but kind of trying to get back into the swing of making stuff more. So when I see, subscriber things pop up, it does make me, feel like I need to, get going like sooner. So it helps. Yeah, and with that, I'm gonna head out. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I go on this channel, another one with my fiance David, and we talk about movies, and I like getting everybody else's opinion and checking new things out. And right now I just have my own collection, working a little bit, and looking forward to summer to bring my car out.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Alrighty, I am Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of the YouTube channel SeptumSin versus the World, where we're not super active, but we do stuff. And this week we'll be meeting to go on about a short little OVA from the early 90s, Oh My Goddess, which is a really fun little show and worth checking out if you haven't already. There's actually multiple pieces to the franchise, but the particular one we're going to do is a 5-episode OVA, pretty quick and easy to take care of. And then, I keep pretty busy, especially now. I'm trying to work on moving, and it takes forever. But I do like to take some time to watch some movies, and I try to get at least one a week done so that I can join these folks here and talk movies. And we've been having a pretty fun month, I think. Our weird little combo of super intense murder mystery, kidnapping thrillers, and bowling comedies from the mid-90s. That's a pretty interesting pairing that we've had going on this month.
Definitely.
And of course, this continues my tradition of doing a Coen Brothers film for my birthday. I believe at this point we've hit Raising Arizona, Fargo, Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Hail Caesar, Miller's Crossing, and now Big Lebowski. I think next year there's a very strong chance it'll either be Inside Llewyn Davis, No Country for Old Men, or Blood Simple, but I haven't fully decided yet. It'll be something to look forward to, though. And at least I hope y'all are looking forward to it. Like I said, I guess just wish I had more time in the day to get all the cool stuff done that I want to get done, but we'll hope y'all enjoyed this walk through my sometimes strange memory lane.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Brandon. I guess tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm not going to say much. Kind of move quickly because I want to go to bed. But Amityville Webcam, my first feature film that I've directed, comes out Thursday. Both physical and digital. So keep a lookout. If you're a friend with mine on Facebook, you'll definitely see the news. Check my timeline on Thursday. You will see the links. Hopefully, people will keep sharing it, and we'll see word of mouth, and you can get yourself a copy on Anhedenia Films on Demand or on Kunaki.
Alrighty.
Oh,
And
sorry.
Go ahead.
Next month, March is called March Madness, as in the sports talk, because it's a sports month with the films Return, Remember the Titans, The Blind Side, Slam Dunk Ernest, and Battle of the Sexes. But next week we will be talking about Remember the Titans, which I believe is Dave's pick.
Alrighty. And my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey. It's been a blast talking about some of these birthday picks. And we're definitely moving into some territory of the sports finale in next month. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know Brandon and I are still working on the finishing touches of the cover of A Tales of the Forgotten. So that's pretty exciting. I believe it's about halfway done. So definitely cool. And I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, which we took a little bit of a hiatus this last weekend. We'll be coming back next Sunday. So looking forward to what our good friend Philippe has chosen for that day. And I also do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time on the channel. So go ahead and subscribe and see what we have for you. I've been doing a lot of gameplay on the Delusions of Grandeur channel, so check out some of that. Definitely got some exciting stuff coming up and out, and as well, I acted in Brandon's film that's coming out Thursday. So once again, make sure you keep a lookout for that link for when it drops, because you can watch it streaming, you can watch it physical. It should be a blast. So, if anything, start your engines, and we'll see you next time here on Inside Movies Galore. Everyone, say good night.
Night.
Good night, all.
Dude, man, that's like your opinion.